Hello, fearless changemakers. When's the last time you stepped forward with courage, with excitement and passion for making your world and the world around you a better place? In this podcast, we touch on all those things, stepping forward into advocacy, releasing the shackles from their throats, and speaking openly, courageously, getting into the heart of the issues that matter for them to drive positive change and move forward for a better life, not only for them, but for you, for me, and for the generations that follow. Fearless Changemaker Academy is going to go live again in 2025, and you can get on board earlier. In November, the cart will be opening up for pre-sales, and if you subscribe to the Substack, link is in the show notes, you can be the first to find out when that cart is live and ready to go. This course will help you strengthen your advocacy muscle, bring back the courage to be speaking up and engaging in those tough conversations, but with grace, dignity, and eloquence. It's a course here to help elevate you into the leader you are destined to be.
Absolutely. So I have no idea what we're going to talk about, but I'm excited.
That's okay. Well, we're going to dive into speech and debate and how it's important to bring it back into our school system. For some schools, probably introduce it to the school systems for the first time and start encouraging better communication with everybody. How's that sound?
Absolutely. That sounds wonderful.
Perfect. Well, let's dive in. So first, Debra, how are you?
I'm fine. I am excited for what the future holds for everyone in Canada.
Yeah, me too. I feel like this is a really exciting time in terms of so many different landscapes, political, social, community, education. We're just at this really great moment of kind of redefining what does Canada look like and what can Canada become. And given how young our country actually is, I feel like we're right on that, that general standard timeline for countries to go through something like this. So it's really exciting for me as an optimist to see what we can turn our country into moving forward. How about you?
Almost exactly the same, but I'm also going to add, I'm more so excited as to how we can better prepare today's youth to be tomorrow's leaders, right? Absolutely. And starting them at a very early age and making sure that not only have analytical skills, but they're empathetic towards others, which I believe to be very, very important.
100%. And being able to be open to seeing and listening to all the various perspectives and understanding that not one perspective is solely right, nor is it solely wrong. But there are components that we can take from every single one of those viewpoints to get to that forward driver to be able to move us forward into good ideas, new solutions, all of those things that help progress countries and communities.
Oh, absolutely. And I think for the most part, Canadians have had more access to proper debate or good etiquette in debate over the years. Like I know a lot of our Alberta politicians, for example, were part of the Alberta Debate and Speech Association. Both Daniel and Head debated each other in university at U of C way back in the day. So they've all been a part of that system of understanding how important it is to not only give your viewpoint, but also listen to others. And I'm starting to see that a lot more within Alberta politics, and I'm enjoying it actually, compared to when I look south of the border. I just shake my head because they obviously have no clue how to debate. But we're seeing Canadians are much more inclined to carry out a true debate and represent two sides of an issue.
Absolutely. And I think it's a showcase of the Canadian commitment to that respect level that needs to be in place as well. Now, I mean, there's always moments where we see snippets from the House of Commons or other areas where that respect is thrown out the window. However, I do appreciate like watching Daniel Smith and those other really great orators being able to sit back, take in the information, digest it quickly, and then be able to respond as well with respect without the desire to, I guess, really and truly, what would be the word? The word has escaped me now. To disgrace the opponent, the opposing viewpoint.
Yeah. And one of the things we teach students right off the bat is this is not personal.
Mm-hmm.
Like, this is absolutely not personal. You're debating an issue. You're not debating a person. And I think that's so important to learn at a very early age and be able to differentiate between what the issue is and whether or not you like that person. Yeah. I've watched debaters grow and work with them from grade 6 all the way through to they're now adults. And it's amazing how throughout the years they become where about grade 11, they look at you and go, I'm not sure I have a side. And it's because we've done a really good job of teaching them there is more than one side.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So let's dive into this. Let's dive into you a little bit more. Tell us about your background, your history, and just how you have gotten into speech and debate and all the way into now being at the forefront of the Speech and Debate Canada Foundation.
So I am actually an immigrant to Canada from South America. Okay. And my first 11 years, I lived in a developing country that saw a lot of civil uprising.
Oh, wow.
Coming to Canada, and I mean, those are early memories that I do remember quite a few of them. And certainly you didn't speak or you didn't advocate for yourself. You were very careful. But coming to Canada, we went straight to Alberta, Wainwright, Alberta. And this would have been in the 70s. And I believe the town's population was under 1,000 at the time. It was the CFB base that helped us grow. And I spent my first 4 years there, and it was so different to be in a country where you could speak or you can have an opinion. And it probably took me all of grade 7 and 8 to find my voice.
Yeah.
And we didn't even have debate back then. Debate started in Alberta in 74. But just to be able to speak up and say something. And so life went on, and we moved. At some point, I moved to Calgary. I'm actually, by background, I'm a business administration professional. And I worked for Rogers Communications for 10 years. Got to meet folks like Ted Rogers, who was an amazing advocate for speaking up for yourself. But and then my husband and I settled in Calgary, and we have 4 children, and it was our second eldest. We moved our kids to a different school in grade 6. He would have been going into grade 6 or grade 6. Mm-hmm. And he was never a sports enthusiast. Okay. And so at the new school he was at, one of his teachers said, I think we need to get him involved in something where he's brilliant, very, very smart young man. And so he got involved in debate programs with the ADSA. And part of Alberta's mantra is if your child is involved, a parent has to show up to help judge tournaments. Mm-hmm. And so that's how I got involved in debate. And then the next thing I knew, he was very good. And I'm not just saying that because he's my son. He made it all the way to represented Canada on the world stage in 2008.
Oh wow, bravo!
And debated amongst some of the most brilliant debaters in Canada. But I went along. I started off where it was a chore. And then it became, I was so excited to get up on a Saturday morning and go and judge debate all day and work with these young individuals. And then I started helping with coaching at school as a volunteer, kept my day job. And in, I believe it was, he graduated, went off to university in 2008. And in 2010, the the Alberta debate was in a little bit of trouble with their finances and just their management. Mm-hmm. And I was asked to take a look, and given my business background, I think I ended up being executive director for 4 or 5 years with them to bring them back out. And then I got involved at the national level, and it just seemed that while we're talking about debate and speech, all of the organizations have a business component, right? Mm-hmm. And they need money to run these events and to offer opportunities to students. And so I ended up at the national level, where I met the McLeese family, who started speech and debate. And I retired 2 years ago, only to within 3 weeks turn around and I was back here helping them grow this organization. That's kind of a nutshell. There's a lot more along the way, but that's about what got me here.
That is a nutshell. But do you mind me asking what country in South America you're from?
Absolutely. So it was British Guyana when I was born. Okay. And then it became a Republic of Guyana. Now it's just Guyana. Okay. And no, I was not there for the Kool-Aid event. I always get asked that.
Oh, okay. I actually, you know what? I am uneducated. I don't recall what that event would have been.
Okay, sorry.
So I would never ask you that. But now you have my curiosity, so I will go and find out. So especially your experience of like being in a country where that open dialogue is not encouraged. In essence, it is, I'm assuming, punished. And then coming to Alberta, where it is such a free, open, entrepreneurial type spirit, where you have to be able to have that open mind to be able to move forward in this province. How valuable is it in your mind that Canadians and Albertans continue to hold on to that right to free speech, free thinking, and being able to publicly debate and discuss topics top of mind, whether they're controversial or not?
Absolutely important. I think it forms us. It makes us unique in who we are. I've traveled a lot with my husband, and we'll say we're from Canada, and they'll go, oh, and then they'll say, which part? And as soon as we say Alberta or Calgary, usually as soon as you say Calgary, they identify with you. And they want to have a conversation with you. And I think that's really important. The fact that we're not just who we are here at home, but we're also representative around the world as to how open and just who Albertans are. I am so proud to be an Albertan. Like and I love the way our country or province has shaped, the way we've had different leaders and they've all brought different things to the table. But at the end of the day, I think regardless of who we represent, we all have that pride of being Albertan.
Yeah, I agree. It's funny. I was just at an event here, which oddly enough was I Am Albertan. And it speaks directly to that Alberta First level of pride and that connection piece, especially how our new Albertans, our immigrants, are so proud to call Alberta home. That free speech, that ability to openly discuss and communicate and to be a critical thinker within that province, within the space that they call home, is one of the first things that they identify as why they are so proud to be Albertan. And as being a born and bred Albertan, I take that for granted. And so having someone else remind me of how powerful that is it's very moving to be in the room listening to people talk about their experience, especially coming from countries like Guyana or Lebanon and those countries where that freedom is not present.
Absolutely. We travel a lot across the country, especially BC, back and forth. Mm-hmm. And there's you get back into Alberta and you feel it. You're within an environment and surrounded by people where they're happy to have you and you're happy to be regardless of who you are. Yeah. You don't always feel that in other provinces.
No, how beautiful.
Or at least I don't. Yeah. Oh, very, very, very.
Yeah. So then let's talk about all of these debate and speech and debate programs. They start in the school system. That is the intention, correct?
Correct.
Okay.
So I'll actually give you a bit of a history on
please do.
Debate in Canada, and more so debate. Speech sort of has tagged along just to help with presentation skills, but it's the debate component. In I think it was 64, Tom Lawson was a teacher at Trinity College in Ontario, Port Hope, Ontario, started a debate program within his school as a means to teach kids how to better be informed citizens and make sure our future leaders were better capable of taking care of Canada. Mm-hmm. And you have to meet Tom. I mean, I first met him in 2006, and I actually chatted with him just last October. He's still alive.
Amazing.
And amazing. And he has such a passion for students and for free speech. Mm-hmm. And so in 67, for our centennial project, he had a grant, and he started going across the country introducing this to different teachers in different schools. And he single-handedly started programming. Right, I think Alberta was probably the fourth province to join in with debate programs. And then he realized that this was going to grow, and he was just not going to be able to fund it at all. That centennial grant was only so much.
Yeah.
And so he went through a directory and found a businessman in Ontario who had no idea about what this was. But he found someone who was a philanthropist, and he thought, that's someone I've got to get interested in programming. And so he reached out to Willis Stewart McLeese, who was a very prominent businessman in Ontario, and said, hey, would you like to come and see a bunch of kids in Edmonton, Alberta, debate about the free market and economics? And this was in 72, I believe. He says, but you're going to have to fly out on your own because we can't afford to bring you in as a guest. Yeah. And so Willis got on a plane, flew out to Edmonton in 72, and watched a debate from kids across the country on the economics of the country and where we were headed. And on the way back to the airport, he looked at Tom and said, okay, how can I help you?
Wow.
And that's how we got our start. And so Willis McLeese funded debate for the Canadian Student Debating Federation. Started in 74. He was their treasurer at one point. He sat on their board. And in 2003, he did a $1.85 million endowment to see that debate continues decades, centuries, hopefully, to come. Mm-hmm. And his son, when he passed in 2011, his son, Robert McLeese, is the one that started working. And at that time, I was president of the CSDF, where we started working with together to ensure that this legacy keeps going forward. And that's how the birth of Speech and Debate Canada came to life. Yeah. So it does take a lot of funding. Mm-hmm. It does take a lot of dedication and a whole lot of volunteers to make this happen.
Yeah, absolutely. Oh, I got chills just like listening to that, because it's just such a good faith story of somebody seeing the absolute value and importance of bringing something like this into the school system and having the leverage and the ability to make it possible. And then what perfect timing, post-communism, fear, economy, set time, 1974 into the free market is where we need to start leveraging and moving forwards. We see value in it. And so it was all kismet, right? It just all lined up perfectly for kickstarting this. So now with the Debate Society, I think I read that this past year you have programs in 100 schools across Canada. Is that correct?
Correct. So they're each province and I think the Northwest Territories, each province has their own debate association, right? And what we do outreach to start programs. Okay. And then we feed them into those debate associations, and debate associations are the ones that organize and oversee very highly competitive debating. So think of us as we're almost the birthplace for schools. And so a school gets interested, or we do a lot of outreach too. I spend about 10 to 20% of my time at the beginning of the school year just tapping on doors, letting them know we've got this program. The program is absolutely free to schools. We supply an instructor.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's the need for funding. And we supply the instructor. And while we're teaching the kids, we also have a school admin or teacher present in the room, and we're teaching them as well. After the first, and sometimes they come in for a second year, by the third year, those kids want to compete.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And we're very much just the educational component. So then we turn them over to the province and we go, great, you want to compete? Go speak to the Alberta Debate and Speech Association or Ontario Student Debating Union, and we connect them to where they need to go, and off they go and they compete. So we take away the educational component from the provincial organization so they can focus more on developing those students to be better advocates.
Yeah.
And I think we are the support. I mean, we actually went 2019, I believe, is when we really launched. But we've become that support of growing programming so it becomes more accessible to students.
I love it. You're like the minor sport program to the, professional sport level. And
absolutely.
It's fabulous. I grew up in a unicorn of a small town school. We had amazing opportunities, but that foundation of debate was never a present thing. However, I remember watching it on TV and wishing that there was some way that we could get that and I could learn that and experience it, because probably by nature I'm a bit of an advocate at heart, of course, otherwise this podcast wouldn't be here. But I love being able to have an ability to have that deeper discussion and get into the topics at hand, and then also learning the skill set to debate for or against something that, while I may not actually be for or against the topic, I have to be on one side or the other, and that is a challenge. So how do you teach that?
Okay, so the first thing we teach kids and judges is you cannot have a bias when you look at a motion, right? Leave all of your personal biases outside the door. First step. And so we always make sure when we're running we call them motions, but when we run a motion, it has to be something that is balanced.
Okay.
There has to be two sides. So we would never ask kids to debate this house believes the sky is blue.
Yeah.
You can't, right?
Yeah.
But we will ask kids to debate. One of the early motions we teach them, there are two of them. One of them is this house would ban homework, right? There are two sides to that.
Yeah.
And the other one is this house does not support zoos.
Okay. Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And we always tell the kids, when you're preparing a debate, not only do you have to be able to support what you believe in if you're on the proposition, the government side, but you also have to be prepared to know what the opposition's going to say. Because if you don't think of the other side, when they throw something your way, guess what? You're not going to be able to defend it.
No.
And so we operate on the rule of three. They have to come up with three contentions in support or against the motion. And then they have to come up with sort of three examples as to why each one of those are supported. And where they can, if it's a prepared motion where they've been given the topic, maybe 60 days or 30 days in advance, they should try and come up with three statistics on each contention that they're trying to either support or not. And so then the kids, suddenly their brains are off in every direction, right? And they can't think of, do I support that? Do I not support that? Because they're so busy trying to find these little, 1, 2, 3, and then 3 of 3 to try and support or not support it. And the one thing we always teach them is it doesn't matter what your opponent throws at you, try and see if you can tweak what they've said to make it sound like it's on your side of the house, right?
Yeah.
And that's where the critical thinking skills come in.
And I love that, because that is just like, martial arts. You're using your opponent's energy to then become your strength. You let them put forth all of that effort and you just redirect it
Absolutely. One of my favorite lines that debaters use, especially as they get really confident in what they're doing, is a speaker will give their piece, sit down, and the other person will stand up and say, and I'd love to thank my opponents for just saying, and they twist it, and if you're a long time judge in the room, you could almost see the corners because you're supposed to have a straight face, right?
Yeah.
But you could almost see the corners turn in on the lip because you know what they're doing, and they're trying to make the judges believe that, oh, they have that opinion too. Wait a minute, I'm so confused.
Yeah.
It's a really good gift to teach kids, really is. And regardless, we have debaters. Not all debaters become lawyers or politicians. Mm-hmm. We have debaters that are doctors or cabinet makers, construction workers, mm-hmm. and every one of them will tell you that debate taught them how to really analyze any and every situation they're in. One of our board members is founder and CEO of Venture for Canada.
Oh, amazing.
And Scott, nowhere near being a politician, but he's learned how to advocate mm-hmm.
And
build a company because he was a part of debate.
Mm-hmm. And he probably is also able to have stronger relationships with his other business partners or other groups that he needs to work in tandem with too, because he's able to hear their side and take that information, take his information and put it towards a common goal in the end.
Absolutely. I watch when we have our board meetings, and we've got 7 board members. 4 of them are former debaters, and one of them is a debate coach that's been around over 40 years as a debate coach in Canada, high school debate coach. And it's really interesting when I put forward something that needs to be discussed, and I can almost see the debaters in the room versus the 3 that are not debate. And it's I wouldn't say challenging. It's refreshing. And I've worked for other nonprofits, so. But to be a part of Speech and Debate Canada and just watching the way they analyze things, the one thing they all 7 agree on, and the one thing that I see them come together time and time again is, how does this benefit all of the communities across Canada and every youth? How is this accessible to a youth regardless of if they're in a private school or a public school? And that's the unique thing about debate. It's coming back and going, what is important in that debate?
I love that underlying purpose of how will this affect and benefit the greater good of everybody involved.
Absolutely. And I've started doing outreach to communities that are not even schools. For example, Covenant House, Toronto. Oh, okay. There's one in Toronto and one in Vancouver. Wow. I reached out to them through a former debater, Swish Goswami, and said, Swish, connect me. And he did. And we spent 3 months putting together a workshop for youth, just youth. And their youth goes up until age 24. And last night we delivered a 2-hour workshop to youth, nothing on how to debate. The entire workshop was on how to advocate for myself and others.
Beautiful.
And it's bringing that skill set back, right? Like, let's forget that we're doing teach and debate. Let's talk about because the end result will be a group of adults that learn how to debate topics, right?
And communicate with confidence, right? And without being able to have those conversations while maintaining the grace and dignity of all involved. And that's where we need to get back to.
Yes, absolutely. And so over the course of, while waiting for this to launch, I've started reaching out to programs like Urban Squash. They've got programs in Winnipeg and Vancouver and Toronto, but certainly, and we've started working or reaching out to programs like Inspired or Teach for Canada to see how we can further get these programs into communities that wouldn't necessarily have that access. right?
Yeah.
And I think all Canadians, if we're going to solve or be a part of the conversation or be a part of the end result of everything that plagues us today, and certainly our First Nations and communities and our Indigenous families, we need to make sure that we are accessible to everyone. And so we've spent the last, I'm going to say, 12 months really pushing forward that we are accessible. We want to have conversations. We want to teach our youth how to have those conversations.
Yeah. Oh, that's amazing. So I guess on the flip side, have you ever come across experiences where a skilled debater is a problem?
Oh, absolutely.
Okay. Do you have an example?
Oh, absolutely. I can't use names.
Okay.
I can't use names.
That's fair.
A very skilled debate. So Alberta Debate and Speech, we, and I think they still do, we used to have access to the Alberta legislature once a year in the fall when they were out of session to run a model ledge for kids across Alberta that would come out, and they would be assigned a different party, and we had a Speaker of the House. And one year, I think it was 2012 or 2013, we had, and the Speaker of the House was always someone that was within the one of the political parties within Alberta. And we invited an alumni from Alberta Debate and Speech, who was now part of a party, to be our Speaker of the House. And things just got completely out of control. I think he had reverted back to his days of being a debater. And so it was almost like having a grade 10 student up front when it should have been an adult in charge of the room. And needless to say, someone called the Sergeant of Arms, and who came down, and we were closed up pretty quickly. And I think I had to do a lot of begging and pleading a year later to try and get us back in there. And the discussions that unfolded after that, it probably took about 3 conversations before he finally said, yeah, I suppose, but it's our legislature, and we should, and so keeping that decorum, right? Yeah. And I sort of, lucky for me, I have the mother kind of instinct, where I was able to communicate with them on the fact that, yeah, I get where you wanted to let go, and you got into the heat of the moment, but as a politician in Alberta, you also have to realize that you set an example, right? Yeah. For the rest of the students coming up, and there were a lot of kids that idolized this particular person. So that was my one go-to, and it was we're friends today.
That's good.
We still are in contact. I still hold him in high respect, as he does me as well. But it was. I sometimes reflect on those days and think, wow, we were so lucky. The Sergeant of Arms was so kind to let us back in. Right?
Yeah. I mean, that is an experience in itself, to have the Sergeant of Arms turn up and put an end to the experience that you were trying to create in the first place.
Exactly.
Yeah. And you said that our politicians are examples to our youth. And that applies across every single level of politics. And I think more importantly, especially right now, it should apply to our federal politics, both here in Canada and south of the border. And it doesn't feel that way. As a spectator, it really does not feel that they're remembering that they are leaders and they are role models. So in the name of debate, do you want to dive in, maybe most recently, the example of the Trump and Biden debate that was held down in the States? Would you like to kind of maybe talk about the detrimental way that debate operated?
Well, it wasn't a debate.
No, it wasn't.
Was absolutely, by no standards was that a debate. And I actually did not. I turned off or tuned out after the first 10 minutes. I don't believe either party, and I'll be really fair, either party arrived at that debate with the intention that they, or with the understanding that they were representing the American public. Right? I think from the very onset, Trump was there to, do that rah, 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 make that spectacle. I don't know if you ever watched when he was The Apprentice, for example.
Oh, yeah.
And right. And that's what I saw. From the time Trump takes any podium, that's all I see. Yeah. It's I'm the hotshot. I'm the president. And I don't think Biden was so much, and perhaps he wasn't well. I don't know, right? He shortly afterwards came down with COVID. But Biden also did not show up with debate principles on his mind. He was there to tell Trump off, and Trump was there to prove that Biden wasn't good enough to lead a country. At no point did either party, they gave you the rhetoric of, America first, America people, but I don't believe at the heart of it, at any point were they thinking of the American people. Because had they been, they would not stand on the world stage and make such a fool of the politics within the U.S. Yeah. I find it so hard to digest that this is America, leader of the free world. Everyone looks up to you, and you've made this almost a personal fight between the two of you, and that should never have happened. Like, it just shouldn't have occurred.
Yeah, I agree. And you're mentioning all of this, and it brings me back to the 2021 debate that was held for the Canadian election. And while there were snippets of good discussion, a lot of it was somewhat similar to what you just outlined with the U.S. election process.
And to be really honest with you, Lisa, I think a lot of what we're seeing in Canadian debates and Canadian politics, it is becoming personal. And I don't know if that's a struggle because it's suddenly become, especially recently, we've got two strong opponents, right? Yeah. Both Pierre and Justin Trudeau. They were both, I believe, I know Justin Trudeau was, I believe they were both in their high school days.
Oh, definitely.
Right? Yeah. And so they're very strong opponents. They're very energized, or at least Pierre is very energized. And what we're seeing is, we're seeing someone who is, in my belief, is scrambling to hold a position, right, and a seat, and someone else who's suddenly getting frustrated because what he's trying to say isn't always necessarily being recognized or carried out the proper way. And they're both very talented debaters, and debaters that are talented are very good at making their opponents look very weak. And then, so now what we're seeing, it's the struggle of who's the better debater versus who's got a better solution to the problems we face. Yeah. That's what we need, right?
That's absolutely what we need. Is we need the solution seekers and the problem solvers at this point. And I mean, we only catch snippets unless you're sitting there watching the entire stream of the CPAC House of Commons, which I only know a very small handful of people who do. We only catch the really elevated snippets, and we're not witnessing debate and discussion that drives to a solution. And I love what these foundations are doing, is trying to teach this early on in the school system, to be able to encourage kids to, yes, you can speak to a point, but let's get to a solution at some point as well. And so, I mean, in terms of flexing that muscle, what is your advice or guidance that you would want to give to parents, teachers, homeschoolers, all of those who have these children? We see that we need to come back to better communication. What kind of advice would you be giving to these people?
The first bit of advice, and this is a plug, but we do have a free program. My first bit of advice, especially to parents, and teachers, if you don't have a speech and debate program, primarily a debate program, within your school or your community, reach out to us, right? It's no cost to you. We're happy we zoom in a lot of the classrooms, or we send someone in. I myself still teach a few of the classes, but reach out to us, right? We don't teach students, or we don't advocate for any particular party or any group, or we're very non-partisan. We are absolutely, we don't get involved in them. We don't want to teach kids politics.
Yeah.
We want to teach young adults or youth and students how to find their voice, right? And how to understand that everything has two sides, and how to understand how to advocate, not just for themselves, but for others, right? We have an aging population, and as they age, we're going to want our own kids to be able to advocate for us, right? And so teaching that is so important. So reach out, find programming, find opportunities, learn more about our programs. I mean, on our website, we've got lots of, so you want to debate, here's what you need to do kind of things. But learn more about what debate is. Really try to understand that. And if you plan to be or would like to be in politics, you can visit a lot of the legislatures across the country and sit in the gallery.
Yeah, yeah.
Right? And so if there's a particular, as a grade 10 student, if there's a particular topic that interests you, and you know that's going to be in their discussion period, find an opportunity to be in that gallery and learn more about it. Really try to understand your neighbors and their thoughts and their processes, but have conversations. Never be afraid to have a conversation, and don't get passionate about your side. Whatever you do, never get passionate, because as soon as you do, that's when you're letting your guard down. And so it's okay to feel passionate about something, but don't get angry. Don't let that emotion show, and really have open conversations with your children. We raised 4 kids, and our house was always, to this day, they're all, I think our youngest is 28 and 29. She'll be upset if I said that. We still have those discussions around the table, and the spouses are now a part of that, right?
Yeah.
And it's that's what I think Canadian families need to have. It's okay to have a large family and have a Liberal and an NDP and a PC at the table. Yeah. Absolutely okay. But it's also recognize that you are going to have different opinions. And at the end of the day, by the time dessert is served, you should all be getting along. Right?
Yeah. Yeah. And that's my favorite too, is when you can have all of those really strong conversations around the family dinner table, around the living room. Your relationships are that much stronger as well. And the best thing is when you get to hear opposing opinions. And I mean, I was a kid and I was a bystander watching this happen with my parents. They would openly debate, discuss topics, NDP, conservative, all of those mindsets. And it would seem so passionate in the moment, but they would finish, they would shake hands and say, lovely evening, we'll see you tomorrow. And It was such a great reminder that even friendships can have opposing viewpoints, and it doesn't mean that the friendship has to end. It just means that now we have strengthened that relationship because we are also comfortable to talk about our opposing viewpoints and hopefully come to an agreement on 1 or 2 of them along the way.
Absolutely. And I think that's the important thing, right? It's the part that at the end of the day, never forget, we may be Albertans, but we're all Canadians, right? Yeah. And while I may be angry about the way our oil and gas is viewed, and my beliefs may be strong about my Alberta politics, I still have friends that are from different political parties, and I always enjoy listening to what they have to say, and I always learn something.
Absolutely.
Right? Yeah. And I think our takeaways need to be more accounted for than we actually do as a community right now. I think we need to be more focused on not so much getting you to agree with what I'm thinking, but what can I learn from you to strengthen, right? And a lot of times, some of the things I learn don't necessarily change my point of view. Rather, it strengthens my original view, right? And so I think that's what's important.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, for a large majority of Canadians there are Canadians who've never left Canada. right? They've always lived here, they've never traveled, and they haven't seen the outside world, or they don't follow a lot of, and they have their strong beliefs. And I think for those Canadians, it's really important for them to listen to other points of view, and strengthen their own beliefs in their country.
100%. Yeah, absolutely. I think getting curious is where it starts too, and being able to just walk into any of the situation and just, like you said, being curious, what can I learn from this? And it might be that you learn, your viewpoint is exactly on point, or it could be that you're totally out of touch. But that curiosity is so vital, and that's the foundation for how you guys set up your students for learning or preparing for a debate 60-30 days out, is getting curious on all the different perspectives and information that they can gather to support their argument for or against.
Oh, absolutely. And we run some of the motions at the higher level that not speech and debate, but certainly at the provincial and national level that they run, are things like, should the UN be dissolved?
Yeah, that's a tough one.
That's very thought-provoking. Or should the US continue to support the Ukraine, right? Should the world, the free world, or Western liberal democracies, should we stop investing in programs in China, right? Do we cut off that tap of financial support? Do we invest more within our own country? Like, those are the topics that these kids are debating. And sometimes I listen to them and I think, oh my gosh, why are politicians not having these particular conversations?
Right.
But in all fairness, we don't see all of their debates, right?
No.
But I watch our youth, and they debate a lot stronger and firmer and better than what we see out in the real House of Commons or in the US.
Yeah. Well, we thankfully have time, and we have strong groups like the Speech and Debate Canada Foundation and people like yourself who are working to bring that skill set back into the school system, working to introduce it to other groups, other businesses, other private social groups as well, and build our youth so that they can become stronger adults and leaders, as that's where they're headed next.
Oh, absolutely. Actually, one of my favorite debates I've watched kids do is most debaters are very brilliant, awkward kids.
Yep.
Right? And they're the ones that, can they use technology like there is no tomorrow? And they're not very strong in sports. A few are, right? But the majority of them. But one of my favorite debates, or watching high school students debate that debate is a sport.
It totally is. It's a mental sport, 100%.
It's amazing. And then by true definition, of course, the opposition will say something like, well, a sport means that, you're burning calories. And then listen to them talk about, well, just the movement of my mouth, I'm burning a lot of calories, right? And so it's really, really cool watching them defend the right to learn how to advocate, and the critical thinking skills that gets poured into that. I've judged. I was part of the competitive side of the debate for the longest time as CSDF president, and oversaw Team Canada. And I had the great privilege and honor of judging in Germany and the UK and Peru at world events. And the amazing thing is, no matter where you are or where the kids are in the world, and I think World Schools has high school, I think there are 50 or 60 countries involved in high school debate that come together every year and have this huge competition. And of course, back in 2007, 2008, it was half of that. Yeah. But watching a student in Bulgaria, for example, debate a student in Peru, and language is an absolute barrier, and they're debating in English. But watching these kids understand a very world type motion at their level.
Yeah.
Right? And bringing it together and arguing on one side of the house or the other in favor or against. It's phenomenal. It's goosebumps.
I can only imagine. As a mother of a really successful debater, how difficult was that in your house?
Easy.
Okay.
he probably will argue different. I think at one point, and I don't know if he remembers this, but at one point someone asked him about his debate skills, and he says, "Oh, I just don't argue with Mom." Right. But yes, to this day, and he is now, oh my gosh, I think he's 34 or 35, but to this day, most of our conversations are his side, my side. Yeah. And it's but the one thing I've learned over the years, maybe it's because I'm a grandma, I've learned when to concede.
Yes.
All right. And when to say, okay, and just leave it at that. But it was a lot of fun. It was a lot of fun. It was more so fun watching him with his siblings.
Oh, I bet.
Right, because he was not the oldest. He was, but he was very smart. And that was the first, yeah.
Oh, that would be fun to watch as a parent, just being like, I wonder how this is going to turn out. That's awesome.
My husband and I sometimes, and I guess I'm telling stories now, but my husband and I sometimes would wonder which one's going to give in first, right?
Yeah. Well, then, I mean, kudos to you. You have raised some strong, smart, and critical thinking children, which helps society as a whole, just even that critical thinking component. So that's amazing. And I'm sure your 29-year-old daughter will be thanking you for placing her at that age, whether it was right or wrong for a long time.
That's funny. And you know what, Lisa? They're all in different professions.
Yeah.
Right? And not one of them went into politics or law. They're all in different professions. And I think debate, certainly having that opportunity, certainly shaped the adults they became, right?
Yeah. And every profession needs strong communicators. Every profession needs those critical thinkers as well, because then you're just stagnant without. And in the end, what's the point of having any enterprise if you just stay stagnant? There's no value behind that. We all want to grow and flourish and get better. So yeah, bring in the strong communicators and have them in there. That's going to bolster your business 100%.
Oh, absolutely. And also teaching them and helping them understand that it's great that you're getting better at what you're doing, but make sure you're bringing up the next person with you. Has become just very, very much an asset to the adults they became.
Yeah, 100%. Thank you for that. Thank you for raising children like that. This is vital. So I'm so excited to see your program and debate get into more and more schools. I love how it's being offered, and I'm so thankful for that benefactor who went and made such a substantial donation to make this possible for skills like this to continue on, hopefully for generations. It's amazing. So what is the goal looking ahead to 2025, 2026 for Speech and Debate Canada to be able to get into more schools?
So we are currently, I think we're in about 100 schools, 3,000 kids. Mm-hmm. We have a 10-year goal. By 2034. Our aim is to have 100,000 kids in our program. And how many of our schools that takes, or communities and groups like that. We also are really starting now to reach out to a lot of the smaller communities, such as High River and Okotoks. But really making sure a lot of communities don't get involved in extracurricular activities because it's an expense to the parents and to the family. For us, or for our program, it's an opportunity for the kids that can't necessarily afford to do hockey and all of the other things, right? Mm-hmm. It's an opportunity to keep them busy in those very informative years. Yeah. And so we've already really launched, we're working with another organization and launched an outreach program to all small communities, rural areas. I think I've got program in, I started program in April in Lethbridge. And we've got Pinoka is going to come on board in September. Prince George is on board. So really, really trying to reach a lot of the smaller communities. Urban centers, like the big major cities, they all have flourish in debate programs and lots of opportunities. So anytime you can spread the word for us, or if anyone can, tell them to reach out to Speech and Debate Canada Foundation, and we'd love to get opportunities there. Funding is an issue, and we're certainly working very hard. But the more we speak to like-minded individuals like the McLeese family, everyone's agreeing that, yes, we need to make our youth stronger. It's the only way we're going to grow.
Absolutely.
As a country.
Absolutely. Beautiful. And you know what? I'm an optimist at heart, so I have no doubt that you're going to hit your goal. I adore what you're doing, and I adore the mandate and the mission to get into those smaller communities. I grew up in a really small town, hence not having debate available to us. So I see the value. I absolutely see the value. And I could probably think of a handful of kids that would jump on board right away, my daughter included, to be able to be a part of something like that. Thank you so much for your time.
That would be lovely. Thank you, Lisa. Take care.
Thank you. You too.